Welcome to our second webinar in EcoFaith Dialogs, which is a series brought to us by Texas Impact, Power and Light, and the 787 Collective. We're back again here with our second video, talking with Becca Edwards and myself, Madison Turner, and all of you. Thank you for those who are joining currently and those who are watching in the future. We're so glad you're here. And just a little reminder, a little refresher, EcoFaith Dialogs is a series that's focused on how different missions, ministries, and spaces of service around the world are being impacted by the climate crisis and how different leaders and communities are responding to these different needs that they keep finding. And so for those of you who are watching live, we're so happy you're here. Today we're going to be hearing from Rodrigo Péret. Rodrigo is a Brazilian Franciscan brother with academic achievements in civil engineering and a BA in philosophy and theology. As an advisor to the Special Commission on Integral Ecology and Mining of the National Conference of Bishops of Brazil, Brother Rodrigo also holds a position in the Executive Committee for Inter-Franciscan Service of Justice, Peace, and Ecology with the Conference of the Franciscan Family of Brazil. Additionally, he serves as the Regional Vice Chair for Latin America and the Caribbean at International Partners in Missions. With an extensive 43-year career, Brother Rodrigo actively engages in resolving land conflicts as a dedicated member of the Pastoral Land Commission. His commitment extends to advocacy for communities affected by mining activities. Furthermore, he has contributed as a board member of both churches and Mining Network and the People Dialogue Network. Rodrigo, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. We're so lucky to have you here today with such extensive knowledge in this area of the field. We do want to give just a little trigger warning. I believe Rodrigo is starting with a video for us that he has prepared. It is a little hard to watch. There's a lot of hard images, but we're so excited to discuss it with him afterwards. So please, Rodrigo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here to share some thoughts and to dialogue about this issue based on EcoFaith and climate change. I'll try as much as I can to make the relation of what I'm involved, and that's why I want to start with a very short video that will show us. I will explain after. What is the situation that we are living? Always trying to understand that when you talk about environmental impacts, climate crisis, and everything, it comprehends a very huge and complex spheres in our society, in the way we live in the world today. So, but I think it's better to have some to feel before listening. Well, I know that the scenes may be strong, but stronger is the reality and the call for change. It regards the first two ones are mining tailing dams, because when you extract, part of the extracting there is separated by water, etc. It's put on big lakes, but there are different types of dam. It's not like this power plants that we have for hydroelectricity, when we have a concrete wall. These walls are done by the mud itself. It's the way you put them, you keep the equilibrium. And one in 2015, and then around less than 4 years, 3 years, because it was at the end of the 2015, the other one collapsed. And what is terrible, it's because the company, which is about the same, one is a Brazilian company together with an Australian company, and the other one, the same Brazilian company. They knew this is what's supposed to happen, but profits come first. And so that's the world, unfortunately, we live. The other one, it's what we call, it's called illegal mining. It's hard to say what's the difference between legal and illegal, because the two first ones I showed, they were legal mining, and the destruction was terrible. The first one killed 19 people, the second one 272 people, destroyed the first one, a river, 600 kilometers of the river, the whole basin, and the other one with a little smaller, half size, and a lot of impacts, lots of other impacts, and a lot of the cities or the villages downstream were compromised their lives. The other one is more in the situation in the Amazon. Is the gold mining, what is supposed to be called artisanal mining, but I think we need to realize nowadays that not like before, artisanal mining is very rare, because the equipment used nowadays are very, very expensive, and behind those extractions, maybe the gold collectors, etc., can be poor people, but there are huge corporations, and also the narco traffic, the crime, the organized crime, and the other, it's the consequences. What happens with the Yanomami people is these people, they live in the north of the Amazon region, almost near the frontier with the boundaries with Venezuela. It's a big region. They've been there for more than 3,000 years, and here I start my reflection. When we cause a kind of when we hit the equilibrium, who are the ones who are going to suffer? Of course, nature. But together with nature, and of course, I know we are all nature. We human beings are nature, but we are nature that developed. Unfortunately, now we pay for this, a very predatory way to live in this planet. But anyway, for those groups, Aboriginal, indigenous people, and more, I would say, people that live in connection with the environment, If the environment gets destroyed, they are the ones that are getting destroyed. This is it happens because the last government we had, the Bolsonaro's government, just destroyed the legislation, the environmental legislation, the normatives, and open. And this is for good. And the consequences, in 4 years, I think it's around 500 kids died from malnutrition, and others with different kind of contaminations. And this equilibrium, of course, with the change of the federal government in all the interventions, it's not all set. I put the last scenes just to see. Of course, the people are not just taking; they are trying to. I think like the campaign in Texas. How are we're gonna face the situation we are live? And here, the approach I want to do, it's a little bit different. I'm not gonna be talking. I showed some the effects itself, droughts and things like that. They exist. But first of all, I think I will be repeating what all of you know. In today's world, we are in the midst of a series of crises that interact synergistically. And this unprecedented synergy involves crises in our spheres like political, economic, social, and environment, just to mention a few. And the most vulnerable to this crisis, of course, the whole humanity is vulnerable. But of course, the poor, children, female-head households, women, people with disabilities, indigenous people, ethnic minorities, landless, migrants, LGBTQIA+ people, the elderly, and other marginalized groups in our society. So in the midst of this synergic and of the synergy of crisis, we have the climate crisis. And the threat posed by climate change requires, of course, what? Changes in our way of life. Even though we listen every day about changes in technology, it's important, but they're not sufficient. A major challenge, of course, lies in the so-called energy transition, and the need for low-carbon future is critical. We all know that. And every day we hear more about what has come to be called clean energy. And that's my point. But are these energy really clean? Of course, someone is gonna answer: the sun, the wind. They are clean. But what's happening? And these are effects of the effects, side effects of the climate change. Because climate change and the way governments around the world and corporations are designing the solutions to withdraw, to leave from the climate change, is creating a narrative about clean energy, the importance of the so-called energy transition. But we need to think what's happening to see if this is already the solution, or we need some more, or we need a different approach, take into consideration the urgency. And I will start very quick. I think one interesting thing to remind that in 2017, there is a report from the World Bank. It's called The Growing Role of Minerals and Metals for a Low Carbon Future. And they established a kind of a framework for estimating mineral demand in low carbon future. And it was commissioned by the World Bank in collaboration with the ICMM. ICMM is the International Council on Mining and Metals. Of course, all the corporations leading with mining were involved in this. and it makes an analysis on future metals demands to support the transition to a low carbon future. And here that's why I'm saying, is this really clean? Because to storage the energy, to distribute the energy, and to collect energy, these technologies requires more mining. And the reality of destruction, I showed part of it around the world. Of course, the companies react talking about sustainable mining. This is a very good expression. I would threaten them to show me where there is one. I have an experience not only in Brazil and Latin America, but I'm on a platform called People Dialogue, which it's a dialogue south-south, southern countries of Africa and some countries in Latin America, especially in the issues of extractives, and we've been in different places. We've been discussing. I make part of the thematic social forum on mining and extractive economy. We just had the first one was in Johannesburg in 2018. Then came the COVID, and then we had another one in Indonesia. It's a worldwide a movement with different communities affected by mining, movements, organizations, and scholars to discuss this. So the extraction and process of minerals for the production of solar panels, wind turbines, and batteries, for example, causes significant social and environmental impacts. So the concept of clean energy must be considered a contradiction. And then in 2017, 2020, another World Bank report, now the minerals for climate action, the mineral intensity of the clean energy transition was stating that the demand for minerals will only increase, and expectations large relative increases. I will read this here. Large and relative increases in demand of up to nearly 500% are estimated for certain minerals. And here we start to thinking, do we really believe all cars in the world will be changed for this new technology? Do we have common goods, or like the capital likes to call, natural resources for all this? And after that, they started to propose to strengthen the solution for low carbon future limits, what we're seeing is the low carbon future is limited to a debate on the climate crisis, to a simple replacement of energy sources, and it places the mining sector at the tip of the solution. And this report, it's very interesting because they invented another expression: clean energy transition, and what they call mining smart extraction. Climate smart mining, and of course the mining sector insists on the myth of green, sustainable, and now climate smart mining. And it is a strategy through a play on words to describe mining, creating a field narrative, giving it a quantity to make it more attractive to investors. And now there's a terminology, what they call critical or strategic minerals. And then we ask, critical for whom? How? So everything is turned into commodities for new technological applications, such as some minerals in rare earth. We have lithium, we have copper, we have zinc, and have gained the status of strategic assets. Europe, by its side, it's already since many years. It's interesting how they classify those minerals according to their needs. The latest list, they replace. I think it's each 3 years they replace the list. The latest list, which is the fifth list, it was from last year. They comprise 34 critical raw minerals, but building on previous lists, it started with 14 in 2011, and 2014 20, 2017 27, and 2020 30. So these EU policies are focused on an appropriation of the planet common goods, the so-called natural resources, particularly minerals. It encourages the implementation of mining projects in countries in Europe, but especially in the global south. Secure the control of raw material supply. There's a war, imagine those big economic blocks, and the supply chain. So, and then they started to release, the EU, it started to release different policies on raw materials and action plans. And this is interesting. So this is one part. Another part which make us think a lot. In 2021, the International Energy Agency published the special report of the World Energy Outlook, the role of critical minerals in the clean energy. And what makes us think is that in a scenario that meets the goals of the Paris Agreement, remember 2015, the share of clean energy technologies in total demand will increase significantly over the next 2 decades, exceeding 40% of copper, 6 to 70% of nickel, 90% of lithium. And the International Energy Agency projects that lithium will have the fastest growth, with demand increasing more than 40 times. Imagine what's already happened in the north of Chile, Argentina, and south of Bolivia, what they call is the triangle of lithium, and where the destruction of the environment, conflict with indigenous and small pool farmers is already happened, and a lot of tensions. There's another report more recently from July 2023 from the International Agency of Energy that state that the minerals market for energy transition has doubled in size over the past 5 years, and the demands will continue to grow. So we are in a system. We're not discussing the system. We're not discussing what we need to do in terms of changing our lifestyle. We're not even imagining the issue of ecological conversion. This doesn't exist. It's interesting to analyze that the Wilson Center is telling us it's an advisory body to the U.S. Congress. According to them, in the recent report, the Mosaic approach, a multidimensional strategy to strengthen America's critical mineral supply chain, they identified the geographic concentration of critical minerals as a significant challenge, both for the supply chain and for the geopolitical and climate ambitions of the United States. And it's interesting when you go to their website and see where those minerals are and when these minerals are refined in the world. So, and there is another report from July 2023 from the International Renewable Energy Agency that states that approximately 54% of minerals for energy transition are located in or near indigenous peoples' land all around the world. More than 80% of lithium projects and over half of nickel, copper, and zinc projects needed for the energy transition are located in or near indigenous land, and others are near indigenous land and poor family farming people. So we have a, a, a strong challenge to low carbon future. The low carbon future is being proposed based on more mining, will lead to more extraction. And the new levels of some extractions in metals and the speed with which such projects will be implemented tend to significantly increase the number and intensity of the territorial conflicts. And we can preview. Imagine where more conflicts are going to happen in the world. So, talking about energy transition without questioning the intensify of global energy consumption, especially in rich countries, is a false solution. Studies indicate that, consider the horizon of 2050, if we simply maintain the same pattern of energy consumption and only replace energy sources, there will not be enough reserves, the reserves known nowadays of cobalt, lithium, or nickel to meet the demand. Assessments to the current and potential extraction of critical minerals in the global south indicates a series of ongoing conflicts and the likely growth of disputes over water, impacts as deforestation, pressure on indigenous land, conflicts in various territories. So we seen that it's crucial to reflect climate change impacts on nature, but as well on people and on livelihoods. The worldwide climate change impacts are already forcing people to leave their homes and land. However, and that's another issue, there's no clear legal recognition for them or any kind of assurance. People is being displaced by induced environmental crisis, because if we keep going in this direction, separating the impacts on the environment and just to think about, which I agree, a lower fossil fuel consumption for the future. But we are inducing lots of problems. Of course, droughts, desertification, sea level rise, natural disaster, weather, and weather-induced flooding, induced by development projects and human action. It's often creating what is new in terms of expression. It creates refugees fleeing climate. So in many cases, climate changes exacerbate other people's displacement causes, such as unequal wealth distribution, closed markets, or the consequences of colonialism, ethnic conflict, economic and political mismanagement. And changes will have to be made to make the international law to deal with the impact of climate change. And it's interesting, environmental refugee or climate refugee includes people displaced by long-term environmental degradation, short-term incidents, or development projects. The number of people affected is uncertain, since these climate refugees, and they are not granted official refugee status under the Geneva Convention. And the United Nations, for that reason, keeps no central data. It is very recent, the use of the term refugee for those who are forced to be relocated for reasons of climate changing, climate crisis, disasters associated with climate change, So it's very complex. There is, according to the International Panel on Climate Change, climate changes are likely to be more concentrated in area of Africa, South America, and Asia, and it will aggravate the living conditions of people up to a point where the basic rights are in risk. So climate change is also an issue of equity and justice. Rich countries are most responsible for creating the problem, but we are all responsible in different levels. Of course, when you talk I was on a debate Monday, international debate on energy transition, and they're talking about the energy transition. And some people in Africa were saying, transition from where to where? Because we have huge areas, there's no energy. EVs, okay, electrical vehicles, but where there's no public transportation? Which kind of world we are thinking? So, poor countries will suffer more, but we are all going in the same direction. So, environmental injustice is a reality also within the same nation where people live and inequitable access to a healthy environment. I will stop here, but I would say that from our faith perspective, we can collaborate in the reflection. We can think on a different world. We can think on a more universal global fraternity where we will include not only solidarity among us human beings, but solidarity among us, solidarity among the different creatures, and to have an idea that we are all related and we are only one family in this planet, and we need to find a solution.
Rodrigo, thank you so much. You speak so beautifully on this issue. How did you come to this involvement and seeing like this issue of mining and coming to start to speak to people like us about it?
Oh, what? Sorry.
So how did you come to see this issue?
Oh, okay. I think my decision, if it was really a decision or I was pushed in that direction, but is to focus on climate change, climate justice in my consecrated religious life, ministry, or in my life as a rules, I think stems from the integral ecology principles. I think it's interesting. Pope Francis talked about a lot on Laudato Si, but which emphasize humanity's interconnectedness with God, neighbors, and the earth, and the planet. I think it's a global, it's a holistic, it's a comprehensive approach. This comprehensive approach rejects absolute domination, our domination over nature, and underscores the importance of social equality and I think and environmental health. Integral justice challenge the dominant economic model that perpetuates inequalities and environmental degradation, disproportionately affecting vulnerable communities, and addresses interconnectedness of environment, social, economic issues, and advocates, I think one issue that's very important nowadays is the rights of nature. So I think to confront environmental injustice, this is what drove me, a fundamental shift towards an ecological conversion. It's necessary, moving away from the techno-scientific, the only technical scientific paradigm towards a more sustainable lifestyle. This approach, I think, recognizes the interdependence of human and environment well-being and seeks to reimagine our relation with nature as an integral of our existence. And I think this is in this field. And I move.
When you talk about interconnectedness and the way you tie environmental degradation issues to class and social issues, I kind of hear the echo of some of the liberation theologians. Were you influenced by Gustavo Gutierrez or anyone from that community?
Yes, of course. By my age, that was my background in theology and philosophy, and of course, what we deal every day in terms of the liberations theology, but of course with the evolution of the liberations technology, because we can remember, it's easy to understand that when in the 70s and a little bit earlier, when they started, the environmental issue was on the table like it is now on our lives. So, but I think that it's a spiritual journey. In the sense, of course, I'm based on the fundamentals of liberations theology, but tragic social environment events resulting in death and extensive environmental destruction cause traumas that are difficult to overcome. As we saw these two crime disasters, and additionally, there were severe environmental consequences of the tailing dam collapses. So, having everyday life interrupted by deaths and destructions imposed by an external force instills physical and psychological violence, make it challenging to perceive positive reactions. So, I would say we live in life fragmented. A sense of helplessness influences and alters the dynamics of our everyday social networks. Despite many signs of hopelessness, there are victories being built as reaction from affected populations. I think as and this is part to read the signs of the time, to read what's going on and what does this have to do with our faith. So from pain, desires for connections, and joint construction of happiness have emerged. So faith unites people in community initiatives. I think the campaign you're doing, I bet you live in this, unites people in community initiatives in a difficult struggle for justice, but recovering the capacity to love. And this is a major challenge, leading to the discovery of the importance of caring for one another, learning to organize to move forward without being overwhelmed by tragedy, and different ways of moving forward and reclaim dignity. And this is emerging. So I think it's faith, but faith on the ongoing world. There are signs, and we need to stress them.
Thank you. We have a couple questions in the comments. Phil is wondering, how do you find any hope in other materials such as sodium or zinc batteries? Or is that just another Band-Aid not addressing the issue of consumption?
Well, of course, consumption, it's one of the basic. Consumption and production, they are on the base. And they put technology to solve this, and it's different now. Nowadays, I think when we started at high school or wherever, we learned that science is a more global perspective of looking into all possibilities, and technology would be the application. Nowadays, I think it works differently. The technology under the power of the economy controls the science and tell us which future we need. I think I would see that, of course, it's very hard. But for us, from a faith perspective, I think I'm talking to a group that is based on this. Embracing suffering without hiding from it is essential for redemption and liberation. So the biblical cries of anguish, such as Rachel, remember, weeping for her children, echoing in contemporary tragedies. There's no forgiveness, she says. I don't know if the right word in English, but I'm trying to translate here. Where innocent lives are lost due to environmental crises. But it can lead us to a prophetic pastoral responses that emerges from so many tears, or for so many doubts, or for so many challenges, acknowledging the harsh realities while seeking transformation through the truth of consciousness. I think we need to take into consideration a few dimensions. One is presence, to be present, to be nearby, compassion, and solidarity. They form the cornerstone for a pastoral action, as exemplified in Jesus' compassion, which propelled him towards the healing and liberation. So the challenge lies in translating compassion into tangible support and solidarity, fostering dialogue, understanding, and building new relationships within society and with the planet to prevent further pain. So again, we go back to the integral ecology. Everything is interconnected and underscores the interconnectedness of nature, society, and human essence, calling from a holistic approach for ecological conversion, questioning existing models of development and consumption. And this approach entails, I think, engaging politics and economics in dialogue to prioritize human life over mere economic gain and recognizing, I think, the intrinsic value of biodiversity beyond its economic utility. It is very difficult because we see the common goods from a utilitarian perspective, not in its dignity itself.
We also have another question from Jade. She asks, when you speak of the industry myth of green mining or clean energy, how are churches a part of that myth-making process, if at all? And how can churches counteract this myth?
I think we are all involved in this myth. This is the new faith. It's an optimistic narrative. I like optimistic narrative. We all need. We just see bad things on TV and people down and etc. So, but I think we feed this type of approach because it's more easy. I think I'm very positive. I see that creation has a lot of possibilities, but we need to go on a process of addressing the critical issue. So it's vital. Which kind? God calls people of faith to action on this issue of climate change by inviting us to undergo ecological conversion. I think this is, for me, is a process because we are all raised on the ideology of developmentism. I don't know if I can say this word in English, but development on a finite planet. and then there's no solution. To live with, to live together, to care. I think this is the verb of our time. So this conversion involves moving away from any obsession with consumption and embracing lifestyle focused on quality of life, joy, and peace. It's interesting because it's hard to say, because some people and some scholars talk about degrow. Yes, but nobody wants to listen this, because since we are young, our parents tell us you need to eat to grow up. We need to grow, etc. No one wants to degrow. So, but I think it's to Francis talk about happy sobriety. I think this is it's good. We can dialogue with this. I don't say we have the answer, but if we have the capacity to share our values with others, with other groups of faith, with other groups of goodwill, etc., and even in a discussion with those who are pushing in that direction, I think we have ways of collaboration. So, because Christian spirituality proposes an alternative understanding of quality of life, and that's why when the greenwashing happens, because at the end we don't want to change. It's just like they want to keep business as usual, and we want to keep the way we live as usual. But there is happiness in this different lifestyle, and we need to go towards a deep enjoyment without being consumed by consumption.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Rodrigo. I think we only have one more question. I was wondering, kind of wrapping up here, I was wondering, where have you seen God or the divine in all of this?
Well, that's a big issue. That's a strong question. Well, I think I would answer on a more, I think we can see, I believe, I think I saw in one person, or in one reality, or in nature. But there have been, it's interesting, there have been, I have seen or participated in profound moments where I felt the presence of God in my life, in my work. I think one particular instance stands out vividly. And I was during a visit to a community affected by mining. So despite their hardships, the resilience and unwavering faith of the people deeply moved me. As we gathered to discuss strategies for addressing the challenges, their challenges, our challenges, a sense of unity and hope filled the room. In that moment, I think God's grace was there. We could see we could see God reflected in the solidarity and determination of those present. And it was a powerful reminder that God is present in the midst of the struggles, guiding us toward justice and transformation. I think in these environments, I think it's easy to see God.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for speaking with us today, and for sharing so much of your knowledge on this issue. We really appreciate having you here. And everybody, who joined today. Thank you so much for your wonderful questions and your participation and your listening ear. We will probably have another webinar coming up next month, so stay tuned on that. And just thank you so much for coming and being a part of this EcoFaith dialogue.
Okay, and thanks for your patience to be listening. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.